Hello everyone and welcome back to DC Central, and in today's video we'll be going over, breaking down and reviewing Supergirl Season 5 Episode 13, otherwise known as the 100th episode of Supergirl, and that is entitled It's a Super Life. And if you have not seen this episode, make sure you go and do so before proceeding with this review, as it will be filled with spoilers. So just to quickly address up top, I know there are going to be many questions from you in regards to my position on this channel, what's going on with it, and things like that. Obviously with Arrow now finished, I've not made a video since the end of Arrow. Now what I will say is, well, I'm not prepared initially to actually give off any details as to where the channel's going, as I haven't actually got an official plan for it and a definitive statement to give to you guys. What I will say is that I'm not gone forever. This isn't a end to the channel. The channel is going through a bit of a transition period right now, and I'm still figuring it all out. So as far as what you guys need to know, don't leave. I am sticking around, but as of right now, I just don't have the official statement of details to give to you guys in regards to what I'm doing and where the channel's going, because as of right now, I haven't got it all completely finalized. I've got these ideas in my head of what I want to do with it. It just comes to it, filling in those ideas. I've got the outline, I just need to colour it in, if that makes sense. I just need to make sure that I have all those details completely filled and ironed out before I give them to you guys and tell you what's going on. So yes, I'm not leaving, this channel is sticking around, but it might be a little bit different to what you expect. So anyway, with all out of the way, let's jump into this review. So Supergirl Season 5 for me so far has been pretty poor. I didn't really like the first half all that much. It started to pick up towards we got to Crisis, but I think for the most part that beginning section of the season wasn't particularly interesting or entertaining. In some parts it was actually really bad, but this back half I've actually fairly enjoyed, and I don't know if it's just because we've had Win back, but I really like having Win in this season, even though he's obviously gone now. But I really loved having him in this back half so far. And leading into this 100th episode, I actually quite enjoyed the Back from the Future 2-parter that we had. Again, that storyline with Win, I thought it was really good to have him back. It was great to have Jeremy back on the show, and having a really personal story with Win, I think worked super well. And this then led into this episode 13, which is of course the 100th episode. It's kind of crazy that, out of all these Arrowverse shows, this is now the third one to get 100th episode. Of course, we had Arrow back in Season 5, The Flash last season, and now we have Supergirl in this season. And I think Legends might get a 100th episode next season if it gets to well, it is getting a Season 6, so I think Legends will get a 100th episode. It might not. It might be Season 7 which it gets it. I'm not too sure. I haven't worked it out, but it's kind of crazy that we actually have this 100th episode for another one of our shows here. And of course, these 100 episodes are always very special. They're always, these kind of different kind of episodes where they kind of compile some of the best elements of the show, bring back certain characters and stuff like that, and that's what this episode did. So this episode focuses on the return of Mr. Mxyzptlk, who of course we saw back in Season 2. He's played by a different actor, they recast him, and they do kind of explain it, but whatever. Now, this is where my problems instantly start with this episode, because for me, the way they executed this storyline and the way they executed this kind of, way of going to the past, I think was really lazy. Unlike something which, like Arrow, which I think tied stuff in really well, and while Flash kind of did a similar thing, again, they kind of did it in a way that made sense. This was literally a clip show of the past, in the sense that literally Kara and Mixie literally sit down on a sofa and literally watch clips from the previous seasons in a way that they're literally watching the episodes. It's kind of, I found it really lazy and really contrived in how it was done. You have Kara, looking back at all these moments from the past 5 seasons and thinking, oh, I need to go in here so I can stop and perhaps improve the situation with Lena by telling her. She's basically looking for a point in which she could tell Lena that she's Supergirl that wouldn't cause her to go down this, this complete downward spiral. And just going through these clips and stuff like that, it just felt really off to me. And it felt like a really lazy way of doing it. Unlike Flash, which, in Flash, although it's kind of similar, they were able to actually use the logic of the show to be like, oh, well, they could travel with the Speed Force and they could time travel. That makes sense. Or with Arrow kind of being stuck in this reality which was tied into the crossover that season. I think they are done a lot more organically than how it was done in this episode. And like I say, it just came across as lazy to me, and I didn't like how it was executed, because again, it felt like the writers knew what they wanted to do with this episode but didn't know how to do it, and they came up with the worst possible solution. But we do get a lot of returning characters in this episode. It was really nice to see Oda Annabelle come back as Sam/Rain. Actually got a much bigger role in this episode than I thought she was going to. But Rain, for me, is still my personal favourite villain on Supergirl we've ever had. I mean, Lex is awesome, don't get me wrong. I've been singing Lex's praises, you know, for like a year now. I love Lex on the show. But Lex, I see a lot more beyond the villain, whereas Rain, she was just a straight up villain, and that was awesome. And she was awesome on the show, and seeing her back was really cool. I thought we were just gonna get Sam, but we actually don't. We get Sam and Rain, which I really like. Luckily no Ruby, but we do get Sam and Rain, so I do really like that. She was great. Sam Witwer comes back as Ben Lockwood. That was really nice. I liked his position here. They actually again gave him a bit more of a villain role, which is cool, because I really liked Ben Lockwood as a villain in season 4. They just didn't really do a lot with him, and then they kind of just wrote his character in a really poor way in the end. And then the big return in this episode was, of course, Chris Wood as Mon-El. We've been waiting for Mon-El to come back for a couple of seasons now. He does come back here. He doesn't really do much, though. He kind of just shows up. He has one kind of nice scene with Kara. But, I mean, if you're a Caramel fan and you're hoping for this kind of big Caramel reunion, you're not going to get it here. It just doesn't happen. Again, Mon-El's role is kind of like, out of the 3 characters I've mentioned here, Mon-El is kind of the least impactful out of the 3, which surprised me. I thought Mon-El was going to have like a much bigger role in this, given the fact that he's such a big character on the show, and he's such a fan favorite, but he really doesn't do much, which surprised me, and that kind of goes for a lot of the returning characters. However, this episode basically is all culminated by Kara going to Lena in the modern day and saying, right, I'm just not trying to, I'm not going to blame myself for you anymore. Like, you are responsible for your own actions. You are completely accountable for everything you do. And if you continue to work with Lex, I'm going to treat you like any other villain I would fight, including Lex. So she's basically saying, you know, I'm not accepting responsibility for you kind of turning against me and turning against the goodwill or anything like that. You're on your own now. So it's kind of a bit of development there. We do see Kara basically not turning on Lena, but, you know, just sort of saying, you know, if you want to join and fight against Lex, I will help you, I will support you, but if you don't, I will treat you like a villain. And I think that's good development for Kara. I like the fact that she's doing this, because again, Lena has been a completely irreprehensible character in this season. She's just been completely unforgivable, really annoying, and it's a shame because Lena is a really good character on the show. I've really liked her ever since she was introduced, but this season they've taken her down this villain arc, which the concept of her being a villain in the first place annoys me, because it completely goes against the point of the character, which was to be the good Luthor. It completely goes against that. And because they took her down that path, and it's so completely, you know, different to what a character's meant to be, it just makes a character seem really frustrating and annoying and just difficult to watch. And I like the fact that Kara basically recognizes that in this episode and just says, look, I'm not trying to help you anymore. If you want to join me, that's fine. I will help you. I'll support you. If you don't know, if you just want to carry on working with Lex, then, you know, I will do everything in my power to stop you. And I like that. I like the fact that Kara finally had that realization, because it needed to happen. And I really hope Lena does come back around, because, again, I hope they don't keep her on this villain path. It's ridiculous. But this was a nice way to end the episode. It did, again, I hate this whole contrived way that they've done it, and this really lazy writing to get to this big final scene. But the scene itself, I do like, and I do like where it's going for the rest of the season if it continues down this way. So, it kind of swings and roundabouts, I guess. Overall, for me, this 100th episode was really weak. I think that the big problem with it is that everything in this episode lacked impact. Because again, the only scene in this episode that actually means anything is the very final scene between Kara and Lena. After that, and beyond that, there is nothing that actually holds any weight in this episode. Again, all the returning characters, yeah, they come back, but they just don't do anything. Like, Rain shows up and, you know, causes a bit of damage, does some fights, but again, by the end of it, completely pointless. Ben Lockwood showing up, again, no point to it. Mon-El does nothing. So it's just kind of like, what was the point of doing all this if we would just get this big scene? Like, you could have done this in another way. I feel like what they were doing is they kind of had these two ideas where they wanted to do 100th episode and do a really special thing where they brought all the characters back, but they needed a way of Kara kind of coming to a realization about Lena, so they kind of just tied them in together and did this one episode which kind of combined the two, and I don't really feel like they were the two storylines to match. I don't think they fitted together in a way that they were hoping, and I feel like the 100th episode celebration kind of suffered as a whole, because again, everything in this episode, it was all building to this big crescendo, like this big final scene, and that final scene completely obliterates everything that happens before, so it kind of feels lazy, it feels pointless, and it feels irrelevant when you actually get to it, which is a real shame. But overall, I did enjoy it. It's a fun episode as like a standalone, but in regards to like the overall season, it really doesn't do much. Like, all you need to know coming out of this episode is that, yeah, Lena and Kara, Kara's just not taking care of Lena anymore. She's not supporting her anymore. That's all you need to know about it. Because beyond that, this episode really has nothing. And that's what I mean about how it lacked impact. This episode has nothing really to do with the rest of the season. And also, emotionally, it didn't really have the impact either because the characters weren't real, if that makes sense. They were all these alternate timelines, so they didn't really come back. So it's a really weird thing for me, this episode. I enjoyed it, I liked it, I had fun with it. But at the same time, it feels like it could have been handled so much better, and I feel like they did it in the worst and most lazy possible way. But what did you guys think about this episode? Make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Were you a fan of it? Or did you think it was a bit disappointing like me? Make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, guys, if you want to see more DC content from shows like Supergirl, Arrow, The Flash, any other shows like that, or any other DC superhero content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an upload. And I hope to see you guys again next time.